I'm going to launch Google Chrome. This connection method is suitable for users who are running an older version of Windows, that is anything older than version 10, and for those users who might not be using a Windows device, such as a Mac device, for example. Cadcorp will provide a connection URL to the service, and my browser has remembered the user account that I logged in with previously, so I can select that account and proceed to enter my password on the following dialog. And these are the same details I used for the setup of the virtual desktop application. So once I've clicked sign in and my credentials are validated, I'm now in the web client where I can launch the SIS Desktop application. And then you get the option to either allow or deny access for copy and paste from your clipboard and to use your own printer. So it's now making that connection to SIS Desktop. And then a prompt will appear to ask for my credentials again. And this isn't my first time connecting, so I asked it to remember my credentials from my previous session. And then when I hit submit, Cadcorp SIS Desktop will start loading for this session. And once it has finished loading, I can then begin to use the software. And for those of you who are familiar with version 9 of the software, this is the interface you see at the beginning. So connecting via the browser is a very straightforward process. So I've just shown you the two methods for connecting to SIS Desktop in the cloud. So let me now just provide you a quick overview of the application itself. So when SIS Desktop is launched, you're presented with a number of options. So I can start with a blank map with no data at the bottom there. I can maybe select a predefined map template with Ordnance Survey background mapping for Great Britain, or a standard template using OpenStreetMap tiles. Or on the left-hand side, I can select a project file that I've been working on recently. And if you're not already familiar with SIS Desktop, then on the left-hand side, we have the list of overlays that are available within my project. And on the right-hand side, we have the map window where we can view the spatial information. At the top of the application, SIS Desktop uses the Microsoft Ribbon interface. So all the functions are organized into separate tabs for easier navigation. The Home tab contains most of your day-to-day functions that you might need. So you can add an overlay to the map. You can style the overlays, maybe create a thematic map, or use the query builder to perform attribute and spatial queries on your data. There are also map controls for zooming and panning on the map. You can also select data and interrogate it, or you can use the measuring tools to measure distances in areas, for example. The Create tab has all the tools that you need to capture new data or edit existing data, whether that be points, lines, and polygons, and there's also advanced options available too. The Topology tab has a number of functions for creating your own topological networks, which could be used for routing analysis. And in the Analysis tab, we have different types of geometry functions and analysis you can perform on your data. If you require CAD functionality, then there are many options available here. And under the View tab, you can view all the attribute information in an overlay in a table view, or perhaps view terrain data in 3D. And you can also activate additional windows to use SQL and Python language with SIS Desktop. And then the final tab is in SIS Desktop is Applications. So Cadcorp provides free to download add-ins to extend the functionality of SIS Desktop. And all of these add-ins are pre-installed and available to use for SIS Desktop in the cloud users. As I mentioned previously, each user will be assigned their own login and they'll be able to set their own specific preferences. And this means every user can customize their experience. An example includes customizing the ribbon. So every user can customize the ribbon by turning tabs of functionality on and off depending on their requirements. Or they can create their own tab and group all the functionality that they need into their own custom tab. All of these user-defined settings are stored in your own Cadcorp profile, which will be persistent between your sessions in the cloud. If you're an existing customer, you'll be familiar with named object libraries. And these are files which store your custom print templates, icons, styles, and feature tables, for example. You can drag and drop these files from your cloud storage space into SIS Desktop when you need them. So if I open Windows Explorer and navigate to my cloud storage space, here I've got a null file called my null file. And for my cloud storage space, I can drag and drop that into SIS Desktop in the cloud. If we now go to the Libraries tab, we can now see that I've loaded that null file into SIS Desktop, and I can now utilize my custom features such as my print templates for printing. So I've spoken about the interface and how the user experience can be configured on a per user basis. But what about your data and your project files? So this project file includes some base mapping data from the Ordnance Survey. And if you're a member of the PSGA, Cadcorp can provide a cloud-hosted data service for the premium Ordnance Survey data. And the benefit of this service is that Cadcorp maintains the base mapping data on your behalf. So you don't have the worry and the workload to keep maintaining the data yourself. So I'm going to zoom into the city of Exeter in Devon. And as we start to zoom in a bit closer, we can see the different Ordnance Survey products that are in this WMS data stack. But when I zoom in close enough, we switch from the premium data, so from the web map service, to the master map topography layer. Now, the master map data can be included in the web map service if you simply want it for background mapping. However, Cadcorp can also supply a vector service for the master map data. And what this means is I can select a feature from master map, but most importantly, I can create and edit my business data accurately if I need to snap to that master map data. If you're not a PSGA member, we can still provide a similar service to you using open data available from the Ordnance Survey, which includes the Zoom Stack product. You do not have to use these services if you don't want to. You can still use and manage your own data if this is your preference. For all vector data, whether that be Ordnance Survey mapping or your own business data, we recommend that you migrate this data into a cloud-hosted spatial database. Cadcorp can provide a hosted SQL Server or PostGIS database to host all of your vector data, or we can connect to your own cloud-hosted database instead. Connecting to the database in the cloud is no different to connecting to a local installation. So I'm going to connect to my database in the cloud to load in some of my own mapping data. So through the Add Overlay wizard, we'll make the connection to PostGIS, and it has remembered my credentials from my previous visit. I want to load in some crime data, so we'll search for that table in my PostGIS database. Then before I add it to the map, I just want to rename the table to crime incidents. So on the left-hand side, we can see we've now added that data to the map. I'm now going to apply a theme to style the data. So we'll set the layer. I'm going to choose an individual value theme based on the type of crime. Then once it's found all of the unique values in that column, we can then style the data accordingly. So I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So I'm going to choose a circle bold symbol. For the brushes, we're going to select a range of colors from our color brewer. And then for the outline, we'll choose a black pen. So I've just connected to my hosted PostGIS database, added some data and applied a theme, just like I would if the software was installed locally. If you still have a requirement to use flat files, every user is allocated 10 gigabytes of cloud storage space. So if you have 3 users in your organization, you get a combined total of 30 gigabytes of space. And this space can be accessed by all users within your organization, so you can still share data between colleagues. SIS technology supports over 300 different data formats. And if I return to my cloud storage space, I can show you some examples of the formats we support. So in my folder, I've got some data. So I've got some mid-MIF data for electrical charging points. I've got a tab file for the boundary for Exeter. I've got some flood mapping data in shapefile format. And I've got some polling district boundaries in a compressed KML. And for my cloud storage space, I can simply drag and drop that data into SIS Desktop and then use the overlays and add theme options to style the data how I want it to look. You might also want to connect to a web service from another third party to consume data within your project. So in my example, I'm going to add a web service from a local authority. Now this local authority publishes a number of data sets, and I'm particularly interested in loading in the controlled parking zone data that they publish. So before I add it to the map, I need to confirm, or need to add it in British National Grid. And then we can see on the left-hand side, we have now added that layer to the map. And because this data is in the Manchester area, I'm now going to zoom to that data. So I can now see that I'm viewing a third-party web map service in the cloud. So it's still really easy to connect to a variety of data formats. Project files or SIS workspace definitions can also be shared within your or stored in your cloud storage space. And as I mentioned previously, if your organization has multiple users, you can still share these files and any flat file data amongst these users. And you can open them in SIS Desktop via the file open method, or you can drag and drop the file from your cloud storage space into the application. So if I go back to my cloud storage space, I've got an SWD called Exeter, and again, I can just drag and drop that into the SIS Desktop application and start working with that project file. And if you want to, you can also add an SWD file from your own machine into SIS Desktop in the cloud. And finally, if you're a Cadcorp web map user, you can point your cloud-hosted web map to the SWD files in your cloud storage space. So that means you can manage and update these files in the cloud, and these changes will immediately be reflected in your hosted web map solution, making it easier to manage a desktop and web mapping solution in the cloud. So I've now come to the end of my demonstration, and I hope you have found that very useful. And you're seeing that the remote application in the cloud gives you the same look, feel, and overall experience as if Cadcorp SIS Desktop were installed locally on your machine.